had great needs. So they're not new needs. They're just very much so intensified for our community. So our organization hasn't slowed down, it's sped up, and we're working daily, and we still, some people can shut down work, and we've shut down majority of our programs, but one we just can't. So we're also servicing participants still that are 1 foot in and 1 foot out and going back to prison. It's intense would be the word for sure.
I'm glad to see that you're healthy and that the work we all know still continues even in these unprecedented times. So glad to hear that you guys are at least forging forward and finding ways to serve that community, because I know you also do incredible work out there in California. So to kick it off, do you want to give us a little bit of a brief background, kind of where you've come from and where you are today?
Absolutely. Born and raised San Diego, California. And I'm not going to go too deep into, we'll keep this brief, not go too deep into my childhood. Like I said, I've been doing this work for 8 years in the community, dealing with high risk, high need youth, marginalized communities, and just hearing other youth stories make my story feel like I was in a fairy tale. I was in Disneyland, even though I wasn't. That's just how bad other stories are. So I don't even tell my childhood story as much anymore. But it was rocky. Mentally abused, not physically abused, rough childhood with my parents. Finally, they got broke up and finally got a divorce. Homeless kid during my junior high school years, 12 through 14, was living house to house wherever we could. That time is when I picked up the hustle, and I started selling weed probably at 12 years old. And I was selling weed at the time, I didn't realize it, but I was forced into a position of manhood. And I was selling weed to make money to provide for my sister who's handicapped. I have 2 cousins at the time living with me that are also homeless with us. One was an infant at the time, and the other one was my age. And their mother was on crack cocaine. So we had to it was really bad. So we had to get them, they had been taken care of by my family for a couple of years when we went into, being shelterless. And so then it just went fast from there. I didn't realize it at the time. It was just the coolest thing in the early 90s in California, and really a lot of places in America was being from a gang. So that was my first reach out, was to be a gang member. And I call it my wannabe stages, because I really wasn't that, but it was just, you had to be that where I was from. You didn't really have an option, like literally no option. If someone approached you and asked you where you're from, you better have a good answer. And if you don't, there's a problem. And even if you weren't from a gang, it was almost like people pressured you, you had to belong somewhere. And just breaking that down, like majority of my friends and people I know that got involved like this were fatherless. There was no dad. Out of 9 of my best friends, not one of us had a father in the house. I had one up until about 10, off and on. But that just goes to show none of us had a father. And so when we went into being and wannabes from gangs, it was like, people don't understand from the outside, like, why would you want to be from a gang? Well, in the communities where I come from, we felt rejected by the rest of the world, rejected by our own families, fathers. Like, we've dealt with that a lot of that from birth. And we didn't have nothing to offer society. We're poor. We didn't think much of ourselves, but the gang, they didn't want nothing from you but your heart. And in a lot of us, that's the only thing we had to offer, was our heart. And it came with the fighting and doing other things, but you're poor. But the purpose of wanting to belong to somebody, something, an entity, some kind of family structure, something that you had value in, that was the behind the scenes essence of that. So shortly after that, we broke off from the gangs and ended up creating these we call them player cliques. This is pre going into the pimping and prostitution epidemic that hit America in the mid 90s, not now. So the merger started happening around 16, 17 years old. Previous to that, girls were just already taking care of us, guys, period. In particular, certain groups of guys, like if it was just buying food from Jack in the Box or a fast food restaurant or clothes, those things were already happening. the devaluing of women had already happened in our minds previous to this. Just even not growing up in poor communities, just men and women in general in our society, we're raised to think women have a value on them, a price value, and we associate that with a sexuality on them. And that's from walking through the grocery store at 3 years old and looking at People magazine and National Enquirer, and every woman you see is either half naked or it's some kind of sexual thing. So this was a mentality pushed upon us, and then you compound that with the music we're listening to, or every other, you've never heard a uplifting song about a woman, and unless it's sexual, or she's either a B or an H or something, and that is the music. As you may know, like your mind's developed, not fully developed as a kid, it's developing. Every word, everything you put into your body, into your mind, has an effect and an impact on you. So if I'm hearing, for one, that promoting gang activity, promoting pimping, promoting sex, promoting drug use, drug selling, women are bitches, women are if I'm hearing this all day long, every day for years, and I'm talking about like 11, 12, 13, 14, these are crucial years. So my mentality and my peers' mentality was already shifted. And if that's the mentality that's growing in me, my homegirls, the girls I'm growing up with, they're listening to the same stuff. So it's not like I got one message, they got another. So no, they're not valuing themselves either, except for sexuality or what they can do to please somebody. They're hearing the same messages, dancing to the same music. So around 16, I start dibbling and dabbling into the pimp and prostitution world. And the first idea, I never knew what a pimp was. To me, it was just, a pimp means you get more than one girlfriend. That's what a pimp was in my earlier years, until HBO, the fabulous media, plays a special called Pimps Up, Hoes Down for me at 16 years old. And when I came home, I remember watching that video, and it was like, for the first time in my life, it felt like I seen a successful Black man that was doing something that seemed that I could do. So we started emulating them. We started doing the things that they were doing, imitating their speech, learning from them, and then continuing down the rabbit hole, getting books like Pimp by Iceberg Slim, watching other documentary by the Hughes brothers, American Pimp. All of these things were now teaching us what that lifestyle was like. So now we could put a visual with what we were listening to in the music. So never was that. So we're getting all this messaging. Never anything counter it. Never pimping's bad. Never prostitution's bad. Never nothing that would even spark the idea to think otherwise. Although naturally, because we're not monsters or evil people, we're victims of our circumstances. But inside, I can't lie, you knew it was wrong without anybody telling you. You knew it was wrong, but not wrong enough to stop you. And then when you were I know there's different forms of trafficking. There's different forms of, in trafficking, even I'm using that word because that's what people understand and know, but we never knew what trafficking was, or human sex trafficking, or we thought that was some foreign stuff. We were pimping, it was pimping and prostitution. We had sayings like, by choice, not force. It wasn't where I'm from, the lifestyle I'm from. I know this happens in other places, and I don't want to take away from anybody's experience or thing that they went through. But in this particular genre where I'm from, it was a bunch of impoverished kids, males and females, that saw no other way for themselves. And this was the way in to finally escape out of poverty, finally to do something we felt was of value. And I'm talking for the men and women that I know. I'm talking for my sister. I'm talking for my cousins that went in, not just this girl I know. And even them, like the girls I know, they're still my friends. I don't have a girl enemy that grew up in this game with me. Two of them, the first girl I ever seen on the blade, the first girl I ever seen work, she's my best friend right now, 20 years later. She just got out of the game a year ago. Anyway, I just jumped, but yeah, we just merged into the lifestyle, and we didn't know all the way, and we would constantly brainwash ourselves, constantly tell ourselves stuff, little sayings that, pimp or die, just these things that we just kept putting in our own heads. I know they said it's a whole lot of brainwashing and manipulation that happens from the exploiter to the exploited. But that's very true. But there's so much brainwashing that just happens amongst the whole circle, where you have to keep your mind in a mode where this is okay. Because even to the point to where the pimps in the game create a god outside of God called the Mad God, Pimp God. And anytime something good happens to you in the game, girls and guys, they praise this other god. And just to think about that psychology is, we're God-fearing. A lot of my friends and people I know, we were raised in the church. Like, those things have been instilled in us. So as early youth. So we know it's our behavior wasn't okay with what we knew was right and by God, right? So we had to make a counter person entity that made it okay. So it was a constant brainwashing. And most of the guys I know that were in when we were young, they're not in now. They're with families, married to some of them married to the girl they were in with the longest, working jobs, doing different things. What the difference, they were just able to grow up. We were young, lost, dumb, and throughout our time, let's say just in the inner cities, there's always been these epidemics. It was before this, it was heroin, then crack, then gangs, then it became pimping and prostitution. And I know people for the genre I'm talking about, this is not the biggest of the epidemic. We're on the tail end of it right now for this genre that I'm talking about. Yes, it still exists, just like people still smoke crack cocaine right now, but it's not what it was. Okay. And the mid 90s, early 2000s, like literally, I would say 65% of my peer group was in either a pimp or a prostitute, escort, exotic dancer. Girls it was the cool thing to do. Believe it or not, like, you had girls that were talking about other girls if they weren't involved. Guys I've been a part of peer pressuring other guys that weren't pimps into getting involved. It was like, you had to do this where I was from. And we didn't just stay here in San Diego. I try to speak specifically about my city because I don't, there's different nuances in different cities and different ways things operated. But we traveled this country as early as 17, 18 years old. We were already on the highway, and things were the same. It was not different in DC. It was not different in Seattle. It was not different in Nevada, Arizona. It was not different. And it was the same conditions that had people doing these same things. So in a nutshell, that's where I was. But for the sake of it, that's where I was as a youth. In those same 9 friends, there's only 4 of us alive still. All of my friends have been murdered. Okay. So the work I do is not I want to be this ex-trafficker out here so people know me. I could care less. I'm trying to stop people from dying where I'm from. And this is the human trafficking, or domestic urban human sex trafficking, is a small part of the problem of the community that I'm from. I'm having more problems now. These kids, it's hard for me to find somebody that's really pimping nowadays to even get him out of it, because it's not as much as it was. But I do have a problem with youngsters on drugs nowadays and pills and stuff that they normally wouldn't do. So there's a bunch of problems that we deal with as an organization, that I deal with, and human sex trafficking is a piece of it. And definitely it is a problem, but it's not the root of the problem. So we try to focus on the root, because we'd rather stop people from ever feeling that was an option for them. We want them to know, and that's part of the main problem is, and going back to my youth, is we did not believe there was other options for us. We knew there were. We saw television. We knew there were Black doctors and this and that. We knew. But did I believe I could do that? Did I just think that was a fantasy world and that's 1 in a million that made it? Because most of the positive influences that I seen that looked like me were either sports or entertainment. And now I can't play sports and I can't rap. So what do I do? So, right. Yeah, I don't. Confession. Sorry. No skills.
No,
but,
you're great. You touched on so many important issues. And I wish, honestly, we had days to unpack all of them because you really did. From your worldview and where you were coming from, there are so many overlapping issues with, as you mentioned, the drugs and with poverty and homelessness and just fatherless homes. I mean, each of these are huge social justice issues facing our nation and our world that cause people to be vulnerable. And I think that just even the way that you talk about the way that you as a boy were groomed into the behavior of first the gangs and the drugs and trafficking, it just shows all of those intersection points that none of this exists in a silo. It is us really peeling it back and understanding the intersection points of all illegal industry, but also how that thrives with legal industry and just all of the different elements that are at play that make this such a complex issue, because we have to address the systemic issues within our societies to also impact positively the fight against trafficking. So.
Yes, ma'am.
So as you went through all of this, what did, grooming tactics of traffickers look different, varying based upon, technology and we've realized recently in a conversation with some folks in South Africa, the grooming tactics there are even very similar to what they were here. But in that season, what did you feel like you guys even had to have some grooming tactics, or do you think that society was really the biggest groomer of them all?
Yeah, so I'll say there definitely were grooming tactics for sure, but it was easy. Like the evolution of my peers, male and female, into this lifestyle, it wasn't hard. And so many of us went into it because there was a major problem that had not been addressed. Like I said, with my 9 friends, we didn't become tight friends until we were like 15. So we all kind of had similar but different childhoods. But most of my friends, their mom was on drugs, recovering at the time by their 15, like born with drugs in their system. Like we were brought into this messed up. And I'm not just, some people, my friend, Professor Jamie Gates, he tells me not to mansplain. So I try not to speak on behalf of women, although honestly, like it wasn't just me or us just dudes by ourselves. No, I had female friends. I have female family members that were right there with us, that are there with us right now. So, and I have to speak for them, and they love me to speak for them at times, but I'm not mansplaining, okay? But they were going through these same, so as I'm speaking about my 9 male friends that were born in drug-addicted households and things like that, the women were too. They had sisters. I had sisters. We were all in the same situations. And then when this pimping and prostitution became the cool thing, we reached for it. We really did. And I promise you, like, not one, I had this conversation with my mom, I got a podcast about it, but our mothers, who are women, never told us it was wrong, but were around. They seen the girls, they seen us. So I have 2 friends whose mothers actually, when they got involved, end up owning escort services and helping their sons. So if you're never told, even by the people that you respect the most, your mom, that this is bad, and they're helping, where are you? And you're 17, and your mom's okay with it. Your music is saying it's not only okay, but you need to go harder. The music you're listening to, media is promoting it. You got MTV Pimp My Ride. You got everything is pimp, 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 pimp at this moment in time in history.
Right. So
you got a bunch of people walking down this path, not knowing that I'm 17 now, but if I don't get out, I'm going to be 25, 26, 27, 30. My homegirl I just told you about that, she just got out. Because of my book, because of the documentary I was filming, I had to go find her. She is literally the first girl. She was dating my best friend, who's dead now. She was dating him, And then when this turnout happened and we transferred over into the pimp and prostitution, she's the first girl I actually seen on the track. So she had a major part of my life, and she's been my friend since we were 13. White girl, blonde hair, blue eyes, middle-class neighborhood, not from the hood, but just was attracted to the street life. You know, never abused, both parents, so anybody can be drawn into this, and she was. So, you know, just had to go and get her out. It's been 20 years. She's 37, from 16 years old to 37. So I'm saying that to say this: once you get caught in it, and you're like chasing that carrot, right? And you might get nibbles of that carrot, you might get chunks of that carrot, but you never get the full carrot. And you just keep going and going, but years of your life are going by. By the time you look up, no work history, no education, destroyed relationships, all these different things. And then these are also things that keep people in the game, because they're in and they're like, my parents aren't going to accept me. Like, how do I go back into society? You know, and then on some occasions you have a pimp that's telling them this, but you don't even need somebody to tell you this. You believe this within yourself because you don't feel nobody. I don't care how fake they say they love this game or they brag about it. Inside, they don't feel good.
Right.
And then you end up taking drugs and alcohol as this just start mounting up in you. And then you leave with depression, you know, all the other medical, it's not good. But yeah, so once you start going down that rabbit hole, you get caught up, easily caught up. And then if you're a little bit successful and you get that first taste of money and you're now in a process, you're making thousands in a week, who's gonna stop that? When you came from, I don't even know if I'm gonna eat, to I'm making thousands right now. I can pay my mom's rent. I can help these people. I can buy what I want. I can wear what I want. Who stops that? And especially the younger you are, you don't understand the concept and how valuable life is. You can't put a value on life at 18, 19, not even 22. You're still reckless, 25. So
right.
My whole thing is I just hope people can make it to an age that they're really thinking, and they don't die or get a long prison sentence in the process. Don't damage themselves too much. I'm talking about men and women. Because everybody wakes, and alarm clocks go off at different times, right? Yours might have went off at 6 o'clock. Mine might have been set for 6:10. It don't make you better than me because you got up a little earlier. I'm not better than my people that are out there in the street still because I got up a little earlier. No, I have a job and a responsibility. Now that I did get up early, I need to make something and provide breakfast and set up the house. So when they do get up, you know, with love for them, because they're my family, they have something. Because right now there's nothing for them. And majority, thank you, we need the services at all levels, these survivor services, we need them. But right now there's barely any that really take an individual, a survivor, from survivor to prosperous, to not just, we're gonna go get you this job, maybe you're just a survivor, you're a victim. Help this woman succeed now, because they gotta go, they gotta be a step after this.
Absolutely.
And wonder why the recidivism and women, a lot of girls go back to the game. That pimp had a better plan for them. That pimp had a story to tell them. We need a story to tell them. We need to build them up, because that's what that pimp is doing. He's building them up. He's giving them tools to make them love, you know? So that same for negative activities, that same needs to be applied towards positivity. And then that same carrot that you were chasing for years and years, and now you think, oh, I don't have any skills. I'm not worth nothing. Even if you don't say nothing, you feel that. I don't know anything, never done anything. But people like myself and my crew, we show transferable skills. What were you doing in the game that can be, and point out that you're sharper than a lot of college graduates. Now, let me show you how to utilize those skills and traits that you had towards negativity and transfer those into something positive, and you'll be prosperous. And I'm not just going to tell it to you. I'm going to show you. I'm going to bring examples of other women and men that have done this. And then we're going to wrap around you and help save your life. Because I don't want you going back in. You know, first and foremost, we don't want you ever to have to go in the first place. Right. I don't want you to have to experience years of trauma so that I can get a grant to come help you. No. I'd rather get a grant to go in these schools and make sure these girls and guys don't ever get involved. Because I know what that life is like. And it's not okay. It's not okay. I've lost too many ones that are close to me. My best friend, my best friends. I have many associates that countless that have been murdered and died. When I say best friends, that 9 I'm talking about, I would share my boxers with them. I would sleep outside so they could have my bed. That's best friend. And more than half of them are gone from me. So yeah, and it just still ain't even helping. I haven't lost any of the women friends of mine to murder or death that were in the game, but almost all of them I've ever known have been around me. They're still in my life, but their lives aren't good, you know, to like either drug addiction or just dealing with depression, overwhelmingly depressed, flashbacks constantly. You know, it's other things that I've seen destroyed, and it's like it's a constant work. It's prevention key.
Prevention is absolutely key, and I'm so excited to hear it. It's always exciting to hear about people that are in the work and supporting anti-trafficking efforts. But I love your passion and just your deep knowledge of how deep you have to go into a person's soul and their mind and their personal history to right the things that have been made wrong, so that you can help set them on a better path. So I appreciate the work that you do.
Think about that too, like how you just said. I love that, because one of the major questions that's asked, people ask, they wonder, why would a woman do all that, get the money, and give it to another person? So that in that piece, that guy has given that woman those things, you know, he's given her those things, but applied it in a negative way. We as advocates need to give those same uplifting, that same going into the mind, the soul, because that's what a pimp's gonna do. He doesn't even want your body. Most pimps are taught not to even have sex, because it's not about sex, it's about the mind and the soul and getting in there to manipulate, to use for whatever reasons. But that same thing, as advocates, need to get into the mind and soul and instill and plant seeds of positivity, of belief in themselves. Like, it is a full re-engineering that needs to happen, seriously. Absolutely. And it's not keeping somebody in a victim mind. Victim mentalities don't succeed.
No.
It's impossible.
No, absolutely. Well, what are some of the myths, you know, that you want to correct about trafficking? There are so many things that, you know, we talked the other day about how in my time living in San Diego, people said somebody's going to grab your kid and run across the border to Mexico. And they were missing the fact that San Diego is one of the worst cities in the nation for human trafficking. We were bringing people in, not shipping them out. Can you talk a little bit about some of the myths that for those who are watching, the things that you want to correct in their minds about trafficking?
All right. So real quick off what you said, I've been in and around the game for about 2 decades here in San Diego. I've never one time seen a girl taken from Mexico and brought over here, or vice versa. Not once, but have seen hundreds of women in the game here in San Diego. So that's a big myth. But it might not even necessarily be a myth, because that's just a world I'm not familiar with.
Sure.
It honestly may happen. I don't know. So I can't say that doesn't happen, but as far as the genre I'm from, it's a myth. That's not happening. I think a current myth too, currently right now, I don't know necessarily a myth, but let me just let this be known. From my experience right now, there are more girls that are involved in selling themselves that don't have a pimp than have a pimp. The internet, the poverty, the problems that were there at the beginning that are still there have not been fixed. But through this time, like I said, the epidemic started in the mid-90s. When it started, my age group, we didn't have older pimps that taught us, that were in the neighborhood and looked up to. They were all gang members. Before that, gang members, drug dealers. The last pimp era in America was in the 70s. And the drugs, the crack epidemic took that out. But yeah, so the biggest, with the internet explosion now, and with the new not new mentality, but across the board, and this is my opinion, the women's empowerment movement has been across the board. Women don't have the same mentality like I need a dude anymore. It's not there like that. So now with the internet, a girl knowing that she can do this without a guy. And almost, I had one friend tell me that she had to she was really interviewing the guy she was going to have in her life, and one dude was so angry or he had an attitude, she's like, I don't want him. She's really picking and interviewing who's going to be her pimp, you know?
Yes, sir. I just left. Where do you want me?
In there. Sorry, I'm multitasking, getting some furniture delivered right now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think that you do bring up a great point, and we're seeing that tendency as well in some of the younger, especially under 18, of engaging in selling themselves, whether that's online or in person, because of the money that's attached to it, not recognizing the impacts that can have and those choices can have on the rest of their life.
Right.
So, and as you keep saying, like, this obviously represents one of the business models within trafficking, and so this is one area that each of these are a different lens in which people are seeing the issue and play out. So it's really interesting to just hear all the ways that you're seeing it come to light, and that transition to, and the trends from the 90s into today, and how the generational impact is flowing into it all.
Right. And then the other addition to what has changed the mentality a lot, how I said my age group, men and women, there wasn't necessarily older people that we saw doing this where we could see the pitfalls, where we could see, oh no, that's going to mess up your life. We didn't have that example. We knew gangs would mess up your life. We knew drugs would mess up your life because we lived that. So that's why we didn't go. Being on crack died out. Like, that was a bad thing. Oh, your mom's on crack. That's what you would say about somebody when you were talking about them. Like, you didn't want that. Gangs were old. Like, you didn't want to be a part of that. You were lame if you were, even though it still happened. So when this emerged, this lifestyle was like, oh, this is something new. We were prosperous. It was something that we experimented with and got into. But like I said, there was nobody that we could see an example of why it wouldn't work, why it was bad. But nowadays, I'm 38 now, so we have 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 16-year-olds coming up that had an auntie, had an uncle, had people in the neighborhood that they saw involved in the gang. They saw them, they lived it, they heard it, they felt it, so they know. So now for a girl who's still interested in the gang, she's conscious of it now. It was easier then because no one knew what the badness was from it. But now somebody's like, I don't need you. I can do this myself. And they have examples and they know how to do it. And I could just go rent me a hotel room and post an ad and do it, work how and when I please. And I get in trouble for this often, but I'm speaking my truth from my friends that I know right now. But yes, there still is women that are tricked, coerced, manipulated into the life. A lot. Okay? It is happening. I'm just speaking on the truths of what I recognize in the work that I'm doing here. Okay? Just want to be clear. And I definitely, because I kind of a disclaimer, but I never want to disrespect anybody. Again, what their experiences and stuff that they have gone through, or other forms of trafficking that are happening. Okay? Those aren't my areas of expertise.
Your story is so true, and it's been interesting for us seeing sex trafficking play out across the nation, because it does look so different in different areas, and those who are the victims look different. You'll see like certain spikes in certain populations in certain parts of the country, and so when I lived in San Diego, you mentioned Jamie Gates,
Right.
and his research. It was showing, I don't remember if it was him or if it was Fernando, the human trafficking task force guy. But maybe he was quoting Jamie Gates, but it's 85% of the trafficking in San Diego County is familial gang related. And so that's significant. That is, they said that most of those were people in San Diego County. I think it was in the 90th percentile. of
Right.
people who were from San Diego County. So to your point, it wasn't people being brought in. There were enough people in the county that
Right.
they didn't have to go looking. And
Right.
so, I appreciate you kind of having the caveat of this is my story and this is my lived experience. And because it's so true. That's so indicative of what San Diego County really does look like. And unfortunately still, it's again, one of the top cities in the nation for sex trafficking. And it is, some of it is coming out of, or a lot of it is coming out of that culture of that gang and familial trafficking. It's what people are brought up in. It's what they know. It's nobody's telling them it's wrong. And it's the only option that they have in front of them. So I appreciate your perspective and your wisdom on this.
So
Thank
really,
you.
I mean, at the end of the day, if there was a message that you wanted to send to survivors, what is that message that you would want them to know? And survivors, I will say that either to other people who are still in the life, regardless of which side they're on, because as you've really mentioned and highlighted, is that both sides, there's a grooming tactic that is deployed to get them there. So what is your message for them?
And my message is going to be to both males and females that are involved or thinking about getting involved in this game, which is not a game. We call it, that's crazy. We call it the life, but it's death. We call it a game, but it's very serious. And I didn't know at the time. But my message to them would be, you're more than this life. This is not a life. It's an illusion. Reach out to myself. I don't care who you are. You reach out. I can help you from afar or from here, if you're here locally in San Diego. But it's not just me. I may be vocal, but there's a more vocal about it. But just my staff alone, Paving Great Futures, we have five full-time staff members. 4 of them were in the gang. 2 of them women. One was in for 20 years. One was in for 14. Myself and my other co-founder. And we know, and we've been able to change and transform our lives. And it was just taking what we knew in the streets and transferring it into the professional positive world. And you can't do that. Transitional skills. You are sharper than Harvard and Yale graduates. You got to tap into that and get out now while you can. Like I said, reach out to me. The connection to be there. Social media is there. My name is Armand King. I'm not hard to find. And you're not alone. We can do this together.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time today. Thank you for being a voice and just really, putting yourself out there and sharing your story, because it is such a testament to the power of positivity and what can really come from investing in individuals, regardless of where they came from. So thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Let us know if there's anything we can do for you.
Absolutely. Thank you. You did enough, just providing a platform. And then if this message reached anybody's heart, mind, and helped them in their life to get better, or helped an advocate to help someone else's life get better, thank you. You did it already. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day, ladies.